Stop him! The shriek of Victoria Sterling echoed down the alley behind me, and I bolted. Today was officially the worst day of my life. I, Leo Hayes, had thought faking about a food poisoning would be enough to get me out of the sham of marriage. I was wrong. Victoria had shown up at our Upper East Side brownstone with her own security detail, screaming that she'd drag me to the altar herself. I vaulted a fence, squeezed through a gap between two buildings, and ran until my lungs felt like they were on fire. It was a dead end. No, wait. There was a car. A vintage black Bentley, decked out with white ribbons, was idling silently at the mouth of the alley. The driver was nowhere in sight. Without a second thought, I yanked open the back door and dove inside. Don't make a sound, I gasped, keeping my voice low. I'm just hiding from someone. I'll be gone in a sec. My words died in my throat as a hand clamped around my wrist. The bride in the back seat lifted her head. The edge of a heavy lace veil slipped, revealing a pair of eyes as cold as a winter storm. Her grip was shockingly strong. Who are you? I froze. This bride was stunningly beautiful, with sharp, sculpted features that looked like they belonged on a statue. But the aura of pure intimidation rolling off her sent a chill straight down my spine. I was just passing by, I stammered, hiding from someone. I'll leave right now. She didn't let go. Footsteps pounded outside. Victoria's security was catching up. Search everywhere. The little coward couldn't have gotten far. The bride glanced at me, then abruptly released my wrist and adjusted her veil, pulling it back over her face. Sit down. Don't move. Dumbfounded, I did as she said. The car door opened, and one of Victoria's guards peered inside. He saw the two of us and paused, confused. This is the groom. The bride's voice was flat and cool. Have you seen enough? The guard flushed, mumbled an apology, and shut the door. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. As I started to thank her, she spoke again. I help you hide. Now you're going to help me with something. What is it? She lifted her veil again, her cold gaze locking onto mine. Marry me. Chapter 1. Everything happened so fast that the next thing I knew, I was standing in the grand living room of the Hayes family home. A toast to the happy couple, someone slurred. I mechanically raised my glass. To the bride and groom. My father, a retired senator with a face like thunder, was sitting in his favorite armchair. He looked like he was about to have an aneurysm, but every time he opened his mouth, my mother shot him a look that could kill. And now a kiss. I turned to face the woman beside me, her features still obscured by that damned veil. Who the hell was she? Let's give them some privacy. The small, impromptu crowd cheered as they were ushered out. Later, in my bedroom, the scent of the red roses someone had hastily placed on the nightstand filled the air. I sat on the edge of the bed. She sat in a chair across from me. The veil was still on. Look, I started clearing my throat. Today was a complete accident. My name is Leo Hayes. This is my family's house. If you don't want to go through with this, I can talk to my parents. We can get you back to where? Her voice was unnervingly calm. You're home. She said nothing. I forged ahead, my voice cracking slightly. I was running from my own wedding today because Victoria Sterling is a tyrannical nightmare. She's part of a powerful family, and if I married her, I'd spend the rest of my life living under her thumb. So you stole someone else's getaway car? It wasn't on purpose. I mumbled, feeling my neck get hot. Why was your car just sitting there anyway? Where was the driver? He ran. Ran? What? She didn't answer. Steeling myself, I reached out and gently lifted her veil. The red lace fell away, revealing her face. It was the same face from the car. Those cold, piercing eyes, eyebrows like they were carved from stone, a high, straight nose, and thin lips pressed into a firm line. She was beautiful, terrifyingly beautiful. Let me ask you something, she said suddenly. Do you recognize me? I paused, studying her face carefully. No. Her eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Positive, I said, rubbing my nose. If I'd ever seen a face like yours before, I'd definitely remember it. She stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment, long enough for me to start sweating. What are you thinking? I asked quietly. I'm trying to decide if you're genuinely an idiot or just pretending to be one. I felt a surge of indignation. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? She ignored me, rising to her feet and walking to the window, her back to me. You needed to escape a marriage. So did I. We both got what we needed. For now, we'll leave it at that. You were running from a wedding too? My interest was piqued. Who were you supposed to marry? Don't ask questions you don't need the answers to. Oh, I shut my mouth. She stood by the window, moonlight catching the sharp lines of her silhouette. She looked like a drawn sword. It was strange. How could a woman who felt so delicate exude such a dangerous aura? Tonight, she said without turning around, you sleep on the floor? What? Did you not understand me? I understood. Resigned, I grabbed a comforter and a pillow from the closet and made a nest for myself on the rug. Before I lay down, I couldn't help but glance at her one more time. She was still standing at the window, as if she were waiting for someone. I burrowed into the blankets, thinking that this was, without a doubt, the most bizarre marriage in history. But at least I wasn't married to Victoria. For now, this would have to do. Chapter 2 the next day, I woke up before she did. My back was killing me. The floor was definitely not designed for sleeping. I crept out of the room and went down to the kitchen, returning a few minutes later with a tray of coffee and oatmeal. She was already awake, sitting by the window, just as I'd left her, lost in thought. Breakfast? I placed the tray on a small table. The kitchen staff just made it. It's still hot. She glanced at it, but didn't move. I'm not hungry. You should eat something, I urged. You didn't have dinner last night. You don't want to get sick. She finally turned to look at me. Why are you being so nice to me? We're a means to an end for each other, she said, her tone flat. You don't have to kiss up to me. I'm not kissing up to you, I said, feeling a little hurt. I was just getting some for myself. Just happened to get extra. Yeah, exactly. She watched me for another moment, then picked up the bowl and took a small spoonful of oatmeal. For some reason, I felt a wave of relief. After breakfast, I couldn't sit still. I suggested we go out. You're new to New York, right? I can show you around. It's not good to be cooped up in here all day. She didn't object. I led her out of the brownstone, and we started walking toward the East Village. At this time of day, the streets weren't too crowded. She walked beside me, looking around with an intense curiosity, her eyes lingering on everything. She was definitely not from around here. That's Russo's Mozzarella. They have the best fresh mozzarella in the city. Over there is Strand Bookstore. My mom loves their rare editions section. I chattered on, pointing things out. She would occasionally nod, but remained mostly silent. As we were about to cross a side street, a group of rough-looking guys emerged from an alley. Well, if it isn't the slacker heir of the Hayes family. The leader was a beefy guy with a patchy beard. I recognized him. He was a local lowlife who went by Spike. Look at you, out with a pretty little thing today, Spike said, his eyes raking over my companion. She's a real looker. I stepped in front of her. What do you want, Spike? Look at this. The coward wants to play hero. He laughed, a harsh, grating sound. You? I can knock you over with one hand. He wasn't wrong. I've been frail my whole life. I couldn't fight to save my life. I could barely run without getting winded. But I didn't move. Step aside. Her voice came from behind me. I can handle this. No, I said, pushing her back slightly. A man doesn't hide behind a woman. You stay back. Before I could finish, something blurred past my ear. I saw Spike go flying. I don't mean that as a figure of speech. He literally flew through the air. He slammed into the brick wall of the building behind him with a sickening thud, then slid to the ground, groaning and clutching his stomach. I turned around, my mouth hanging open. She was lowering her leg, calmly brushing off a speck of imaginary dust from her pants. Let's go. Wait. I pointed at Spike, who was now whimpering on the pavement. Did you just? He was in the way. No, I mean, how did you? She was already a few steps ahead and turned back to look at me. What are you standing there for? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Seeing Spike's buddy scramble away in terror, I decided to drop it. For now, this woman was definitely more than she seemed. On the way back to the house, I couldn't help but steal glances at her. The way she walked was different from other women. Her steps were sure-footed and balanced, her back perfectly straight. She moved like a trained fighter. Have you seen enough? She asked suddenly. Ahem. I quickly looked away. I was just curious. Have you done martial arts before? A little. A little? How much is a little? She didn't answer. I wisely shut my mouth. Chapter 3. A few days passed in this strange new reality. I discovered she had a routine. Every morning at dawn, she'd be in the backyard, going through a series of exercises that looked brutally efficient. I watched from the kitchen window a few times. Her movements were powerful and precise, a whirlwind of controlled violence. This was not what a little training looked like. But she didn't offer any information, and I didn't dare ask. One afternoon, I was passing by a jewelry store and saw a delicate silver necklace in the window. It was simple and elegant, not like the flashy, over-the-top pieces you usually see. On a strange impulse, I went in and bought it. Back at the house, I left the small box on the vanity in her room. I didn't leave a note, just left it there. At dinner that evening, she suddenly spoke. "The necklace. Did you buy it?" I nearly choked on my pasta. What necklace? She just looked at me with those knowing, unnerving eyes. I broke eye contact. "Oh, that. I just saw it in a window. Thought it might suit you." Suit me? It was just an impulse buy. Nothing expensive. She didn't say anything else. But I felt like the way she looked at me had changed. There was a new layer of scrutiny in her gaze. Later that night, my father summoned me to his study. He was signing some documents when I entered and didn't look up. "On your knees." I sighed and knelt on the Persian rug. Causing a scene in public, getting into a sham marriage. Are you trying to drag the Hayes family name through the mud? He finally put his pen down with a sharp rap on the desk. "Dad, I was running for my life." "Running for your life? You are the heir to this family. Since when do we run?" Victoria Sterling was going to literally kidnap me and force me to marry her. Was I supposed to just let that happen? My father scoffed. "So you ran, and in the process, you brought home some woman of unknown origin." "She's not of unknown origin," I retorted, lifting my head. She's what?" I had no answer. The truth was, I had no idea who she was. "Let me tell you something," my father said, standing and walking around the desk to stand over me. "I have people looking into this woman right now. If I find anything at all, this marriage is annulled." Immediately. "No." The word flew out of my mouth before I could stop it. My father paused. I paused, surprised at my own outburst. But the words were out, so I had to follow through. "Dad, she's my wife. I married her. The staff, our friends. Everyone saw it. If you annul it now, think of the scandal. What would that do to the family's reputation? Now you care about our reputation? Edo." I straightened my back, still on my knees. "Dad, my entire life, I've never asked you for anything. Not really. This one time, I'm asking you. Leave her alone." My father stared down at me for a long time. "Are you serious?" "I'm serious." He was silent for another moment, then waved a dismissive hand. "Get out." I scrambled to my feet and left the study. Walking through the quiet hallway, I realized my back was soaked with sweat. Why had I just done that? Why was I so determined to protect her? I couldn't explain it. As I rounded the corner into the main corridor, I stopped dead. She was standing in the shadows, cast by the moonlight from a nearby window. She was holding a glass of water, as if she'd been on her way to bring it to me, but had stopped in her tracks. How much did she hear? Our eyes met across the silent space. She didn't say a word, just turned and walked away. But I saw it then, the way she looked at me. It had definitely changed. Chapter 4. A few days later, an official-looking envelope arrived from Washington. The president was holding a ceremony at the White House to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to General Anya Petrova, a celebrated hero from the war in the East. As a former senator, my father was expected to attend. As his son, I was dragged along. She didn't come. She said she wasn't feeling well and stayed home to rest. I was a little worried and lingered at her door before I left. She was leaning against the window frame and gave me a small wave. "Go on." Somehow that set my mind at ease. At the White House, the East Room was packed with politicians, dignitaries, and military brass. The president stood at the podium, beaming, "And now, I am proud to present the United States' highest civilian honor to a true American hero, General Anya Petrova." The grand doors at the back of the room opened, flooding the space with light. A figure emerged, walking against the glare. She was in a crisp, decorated dress uniform, her shoulders squared, her every step radiating an unshakable confidence. Standing in the back corner, bored out of my mind, I glanced over casually, and my world tilted on its axis. That face. I had seen that face before. Not just seen it. I've been eating breakfast with it for the past week. "Mr. President, it is my deepest honor." Her voice rang out through the hall, as crisp and cold as ice. A roar went through my head. "Anya Petrova, the 4-star general, the Reaper of the East, a living legend who had single-handedly turned the tide of the war. The woman I had married. She stood at attention, her back ramrod straight, radiating an aura of lethal competence. I thought about the way she'd sent Spike flying with a single kick. Suddenly, that seemed merciful. The president was saying something, pinning the medal on her, but I didn't hear a word. My eyes were locked on her as she turned to face the audience, her expression unreadable. Her gaze swept across the crowd, and for a fraction of a second, it landed on me. It paused, then moved on. I could feel my knees starting to shake. This was bad. I had married a living weapon. After the ceremony, I walked out of the White House in a daze. My father was calling my name, but I ignored him and got straight into our car. On the ride back to New York, my mind was racing. Why would she marry me? She was a decorated general, a national hero. She could have anyone. Why settle for a slacker heir from a political family? And she said she was running from marriage, too. Who was she supposed to marry? Who could possibly be so terrible that she would rather grab a random stranger off the street? The more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. This was a mess I couldn't handle. I wasn't equipped for this. I had to get out. When I got back to the brownstone, she wasn't home yet. She was probably at some high-level reception. This was my chance. I rushed to my room and started packing. A few changes of clothes, all the cash I had, a couple of credit cards. I scribbled a note and left it on the table. I'm sorry. I'm way out of my league. Goodbye. Then I slid open the window, ready to climb down the fire escape. Going somewhere, I nearly fell off the ledge. She was standing in the doorway of the bedroom, still in her full dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. E. Use your words. I swallowed hard, trying to get my heart rate under control. I was just going for a walk. With a duffel bag? For exercise. She walked into the room, each step slow and deliberate. I backed away until my back hit the window frame. Leo Hayes, she said, standing right in front of me, looking down at me. Are you trying to run away? No. Then what's the bag for? I thought you were going to kill me. The words tumbled out in a pathetic rush. She actually blinked. Kill you? You're a general. I wailed. They call you the Reaper. I'm just some useless slacker who's been lying to you this whole time. Why wouldn't you kill me? She looked at me, and then a small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. It wasn't a cold smile. It was genuine. Are you afraid I'm going to kill you? She asked. Or are you just afraid of me? Both. The smile vanished. She took a step back. I'm not going to kill you. I let out a sigh of relief. But you're not running, either. My heart leaped back into my throat. Why not? Because you married me. She locked her eyes on mine. Leo Hayes, you married me. Did you really think you could just walk away? Chapter 5, she didn't make me run, and she didn't make me sleep on the floor. That night, she sat by the window, and I sat on the bed, and we stayed like that in silence until the sun started to rise. What do you want from me? I finally asked, the quiet becoming unbearable. What do you mean? You're a 4-star general. I'm a good-for-nothing heir. What possible use could I be to you? She just looked at me, saying nothing. If you needed someone to block an arranged marriage from the president, I pressed on, couldn't you have found someone from a family of equal standing? Why me? You were convenient. She had a point. I had sort of thrown myself at her feet. But you could annul it now, I said weakly. Your identity is public. You can have anyone you want. I don't want anyone else. Hier. WH, what does that mean? She stood up and walked over to me. The early morning light softened the sharp edges of her face. Leo, when you shielded me from those thugs, did you know who I was? Of course not. Did you know I could fight? No. I just figured you were stronger than you looked. Then why did you step in front of me? I opened my mouth, but no answer came out. A guy like Spike could have laid you out with one punch, she said. You knew you couldn't win, but you tried to protect me anyway. Why? That night in the study, when your father threatened to have us annulled, why did you stop him? You didn't even know my name. Why would you defend me? Her questions left me speechless. She watched me struggle for a moment, then reached out and gently patted the top of my head. Idiot. But I don't mind it. She turned and walked back to the window, her back to me. Don't try to run again. If you do, I'll find you. And when I find you, I'll break both of your legs. I crawled under the covers, deciding to put my escape plans on hold. Indefinitely. You don't mess with a woman who makes promises like that. From that day on, she stopped hiding who she was. Her morning workouts were now done with a cold, brutal efficiency in the main gym. The combat routines she practiced were terrifyingly fast and lethal. Is it the kind of fighting you did over there? I asked one morning, mesmerized. Yes. So, how many people have you? She stopped and gave me a look. I immediately shut up. I don't kill innocent people, she said, lowering her practice weapon. Does that scare you? A little. Then why haven't you run away yet? I thought for a moment. You said you'd break my legs. Is that the only reason? And I scratched my head. You're actually not as scary as you look. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, I stammered. You're intense, but you don't seem like an unreasonable person. You've known me for a week, and you're ready to make that judgment. It's a gut feeling. I could have sworn I saw the corner of her mouth twitch again. Your gut is going to get you killed one day. Well, in that case, General, I hope you'll have mercy. She just scoffed and walked away. I stood there, a goofy smile spreading across my face. For some reason, her retreating back didn't seem quite so intimidating anymore. Chapter 6 life settled into a strange rhythm. I stopped thinking about running away, and she stopped threatening me. A weird sort of comfort grew between us. When she practiced in the gym, I'd watch. When she was on conference calls about military logistics, I'd bring her coffee. Sometimes she'd get annoyed by my presence and kick me out. But more often than not, she let me stay. One afternoon, she had a rare day off. We were sitting on the patio, enjoying the sun. Leo, she said suddenly, yeah. That day, when you jumped in my car, you really had no idea who I was. She'd asked this before, and my answer was always the same. No clue. Don't the sons of New York's elite keep track of who's who in Washington? That's for the ambitious ones, I said with a shrug. I'm the family slacker, remember? I don't do galas or fundraisers. My world is pretty much limited to this city. I had no idea who was who at the Pentagon. You'd never even heard the name General Anya Petrova? I'd heard the name, I admitted, the Reaper of the East, Legendary hero. I also heard she was built like a linebacker with a face like a clenched fist. Her eyes went cold. I clamped my mouth shut. Who said that? Just rumors, I squeaked. Tabloid gossip. She let out a short, sharp sigh. Built like a linebacker? Definitely fake news. I backpedaled furiously. Look at you. You're elegant. Not at all like someone who fights for a living. I trailed off, realizing that probably wasn't the right thing to say either. She was watching me with a complicated expression. Now, here, are you an idiot? I decided silence was my best option. She watched me for another moment, then sighed again, a real sigh this time. So you really didn't know? I told you I didn't. Why is it so hard to believe? Because I'm used to it. Her voice softened. I'm used to everyone who approaches me having an agenda. I stayed quiet. She turned her gaze to the old oak tree at the edge of the yard. Do you know why I was running from my own wedding? You said you were trying to avoid an arranged marriage set up by the president. The president wanted me to marry his son. I sucked in a sharp breath. The president's son? The guy was a notorious moron, famous for his scandals and general incompetence. You didn't want me the first daughter-in-law. No, she said flatly. His son is an imbecile. Sure, I hissed, looking around nervously. What are you afraid of? There's no one else here. But that's the president's son. An imbecile is an imbecile, she said, turning to look at me. Do you disagree? I thought about the headlines, the late-night jokes, and quietly conceded the point. She wasn't wrong. I spent 10 years fighting a war on the other side of the world, she continued. I finally come home, and my reward is being shackled to an idiot for political gain. Do you think I was going to stand for that? Definitely not, I answered honestly. So I decided to find someone, anyone, and get married first, to force the president's hand. And then you ran into me. So I was basically a lucky find. A genuine, small smile touched her lips. Something like that. I didn't know whether to feel proud or pathetic. Then why didn't you annul it later? I asked. You obviously have enough power to refuse the president. Getting rid of a slacker husband should be easy. She didn't answer right away. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke. When you shielded me, she said, her voice quiet, I thought to myself, this man is a complete fool. Knowing you'd lose, but charging in anyway. What is that if not foolish? It's called being a gentleman. I protested. A gentleman? She chuckled softly. You didn't even know who you were up against. I knew you were my wife. I mumbled. And a husband is supposed to protect his wife. It's just what you do. She froze. She turned to me, her expression unreadable. Leo, do you know what people in Washington think of me? What? The other generals are afraid I'll steal their glory. The politicians are afraid I'm too powerful and uncontrollable. The old money families are afraid I don't respect their traditions. They're a bunch of cowards. And then there's you, she continued, ignoring my interruption. You cluelessly buy me a necklace, cluelessly give me a tour of your city, and cluelessly stand between me and a bunch of street thugs. You are the only person who hasn't looked at me and seen a general. I was stunned into silence. She stood up and walked over to me. I instinctively flinched back, and she grabbed the front of my shirt, pulling me close. Now, Igriegajis, you asked me why I didn't get rid of you. Because I don't want to. She let go and turned to walk back into the house. At the door, she paused and looked back at me. You'll do. And with that, she was gone. I stood there, my heart hammering against my ribs. You'll do. She said I'll do. I looked down at my hands. Strange. They were shaking. Chapter 7. I thought that would be the end of it. But I'd forgotten about one very important and very loud, loose end. Victoria Sterling. One afternoon, as I was dozing in a lounge chair on the patio, a panicked housekeeper came running out. Victoria had arrived. With backup. How much backup? I asked, sitting bolt upright. About 24 security guards. And her personal assistant and a team of lawyers. What does she want? She's demanding an explanation. The housekeeper stammered. I flashed back to the wedding day fiasco, and my blood ran cold. Where's Anya? In the main drawing room, sir. I didn't wait to hear more, sprinting inside. When I got there, Victoria was pacing in the middle of the room, fuming. I want to see the cheap little tramp who thinks she can steal what belongs to me. She bellowed, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. Anya was sitting calmly in an armchair, watching her with a detached sort of amusement. Are you finished? She asked. Finished. Victoria's eyes bulged. I haven't even started. Leo Hayes is a coward and a snake, but he was promised to me. He had no right to run off and marry some. He married me. And who the hell are you? Victoria's tirade cut off abruptly. She squinted, her eyes focusing on Anya's face. Her own face went pale. You're General Anya Petrova, Anya said, rising to her feet. It's a pleasure, Ms. Sterling. Victoria took an involuntary step back. How is it you? Why couldn't it be me? Victoria's face cycled through shades of red and white. She was speechless. Anya walked toward her, stopping just inches away, her taller frame casting a shadow over the fuming socialite. What was it you called me a moment ago? A cheap little tramp? I didn't know it was you. But you know now, Anya said, her voice dangerously quiet. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Victoria gritted her teeth, her face flushed with humiliation. Even if you were a general, you can't just steal my fiancé. I didn't steal him. Anya corrected her. He stole me. Victoria's head snapped in my direction. I was trying to blend in with a ficus plant near the door. It didn't work. Leo Hayes. She shrieked. You are going to explain this to me right now. Well, I said, my voice dry. It's kind of a long story. I don't want to hear it. She cut me off. You are going to annul this marriage to this woman, and you are going to marry me. I can't do that. And why not? Because I don't want to annul it. Victoria looked like she was about to physically combust. You dare to refuse me? Yes, I'm refusing you, I said, finally stepping out from behind the plant and moving to stand beside Anya. Victoria, let's just all be reasonable. Reasonable? She sneered. Fine. I'll show you reasonable. She shot a look at her security team. Get him. The guards started to close in. I took a step back, bumping into Anya. Honey, I whispered, I think maybe we should stay put. She moved in front of me. I had no idea where it came from, but a steel-tipped walking cane, my father's, was suddenly in her hand. Anyone who touches my husband, her voice was as cold as the grave, will lose the use of their hands. The guards froze. Victoria's face was a mask of pure fury. Anya Petrova, you wouldn't dare. You think I wouldn't? Anya looked at her. I've faced down entire armies. Do you really think I'm intimidated by a pack of hired thugs? The sheer force of her presence seemed to suck the air out of the room. Victoria was speechless. My husband, Anya said, each word landing like a hammer blow, is not someone you get to discipline. She tossed the cane, which clattered onto a nearby table, and turned to me. Let's go. Huh? Go where? Back to our room. She grabbed me by the collar and dragged me out of the drawing room, leaving Victoria sputtering in our wake. Anya Petrova. You just wait. She screamed after us. Anya didn't even turn around. I'll be waiting, she called over her shoulder. Back in the safety of our wing of the house, she finally let go of my shirt. I rubbed my neck, but I felt a warmth spreading through my chest. You said I was your husband. Is that not accurate? And you told her she couldn't discipline me? Would you have preferred she did? No. I waved my hands quickly. It's just, I was happy to hear it. She glanced at me, then looked away. Wife, I said, stepping closer. Are you starting to like me? Don't be ridiculous. You sure didn't act like you disliked me just now. She shot me a glare, but I saw it. The tips of her ears were turning red. Leo, she warned, don't push your luck. I'm not, I grinned. I just want to tell my wife that I think she'll do too. She stopped, looking at me with a startled expression. What? I said. I took a deep breath. I like you too. She just stared at me for a long moment. Do you have any idea who I am? General Anya Petrova. Do you have any idea what marrying me will mean for your life? Nope. You don't know, and you still say you like me? Liking you is liking you. I shrugged. What does it have to do with the consequences? Her expression shifted, cycling through a half-dozen emotions I couldn't name. Finally, she reached out and patted my head. Dummy, you say that a lot. Because it's true. She turned her back to me, but I could see that her ears were now a very deep shade of crimson. Lao. Yeah. You chose me. Naughty grits. Naughty grits. Really? She turned back around to face me, and then she smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached her eyes and melted all the ice, chasing away every sharp edge. Good. Chapter 8. The days that followed were more eventful than I could have imagined. Victoria Sterling, true to her nature, didn't give up easily. First, she sent an emissary to offer a staggering sum of money if I would agree to an annulment. When I told Anya, she just said, tell her I'm not for sale. Next, she tried to appeal directly to the president, claiming a decorated general had used her position to steal her fiancé. The president reportedly listened patiently, then asked Anya for her side of the story. Anya's response was simple. At the time of my marriage, Ms. Sterling's engagement was not yet official. The president then, according to the rumors, gave Victoria a lecture on wasting his time. After that, Victoria finally went quiet. My father, who was initially horrified by the marriage, had done a complete 180. The day after the White House ceremony, he had called me into his study and yelled, "What kind of dumb luck do you have, son?" I was confused. He looked at me with a mix of exasperation and awe. Do you know how many powerful men wanted an alliance with General Petrova? Do you know the president's own son couldn't manage it? Do you know? I know she thinks he's an imbecile, I said quietly. My dad stared at me, then let out a long sigh. Well, I'll be damned. You lucky fool. From then on, he was obnoxiously doting on his new daughter-in-law. Anya, my dear, I acquired this rare, single-estate Darjeeling. You simply must try it. Anya, is there anything in the household that isn't to your liking? Just say the word. Anya. Dad, I finally interrupted him one evening. Can you dial it back a little? What? You were never this nice to me when I was a kid. That's different, my father said, completely serious. You brought home a 4-star general. You think I'm going to give her a hard time? He had a point. One evening, Anya announced she was going to teach me how to ride a horse at the family's country estate. You're a grown man and you can't ride. It's embarrassing. I have bad balance. You'll learn. She got me up on a gentle old mare, then stood in the middle of the paddock calling out instructions. Sit up straight, back straight, heels down. The horse shifted its weight, and I, being me, immediately lost my balance and toppled sideways. I braced for impact with the ground, but instead I landed in a pair of strong arms. She had moved with impossible speed to catch me. Are you always this clumsy? She muttered. I told you, bad balance. She lifted me to my feet like I weighed nothing. I was about to complain when I felt something soft brush against my cheek. Her lips. I froze. She set me down and said, as if nothing had happened, "That's enough for today. Let's go get dinner." Wait, I stammered, touching my cheek. Did I just what? You kissed me. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. She turned to face me, a single eyebrow raised. Did I? Looking at her playful, challenging expression, I finally understood. She was teasing me. Onion. Call me wife. Wife. Good boy. She walked ahead of me toward the house, and I followed a few steps behind. Watching her strong, confident back, I had a sudden thought. Maybe being dragged through life by this woman wouldn't be so bad after all. In fact, it might even be sweet.